The war room on Station Nexus Prime was filled with the sounds of panic. Admiral Zester stood at the center of the massive circular chamber, his four blue arms moving frantically as he pointed at the holographic display floating above them. Red dots marked the positions of enemy ships, and there were far too many of them. They took the Kepler 7 system yesterday, he announced to the gathered representatives. His voice carried the weight of 3 years of losing battles. Borthons are moving faster than we predicted. Our intelligence was wrong. Again, the assembled aliens from 47 different worlds looked up at the display with growing fear. Vorthons had been conquering star systems for 3 solar cycles now, and nothing seemed to stop them. Every battle ended the same way, with more worlds falling under their control and more peaceful species being enslaved. Commander Velinara, a small gray-skinned Mython with large black eyes, raised her webbed hand. How many ships do they have in the sector now? Our scouts report at least 300 vessels, Z replied. Heavy cruisers, battle carriers, and their new dreadnoughts. They're moving toward the Athathuran colonies next. A shimmer of light indicated that the Athathuran delegate was speaking. Her crystalline form glowed with a soft blue light that pulsed with her emotions. My people cannot fight them, she said in her musical voice. We are not warriors, they're artists, teachers, healers. When they come, we will have no choice but to surrender. Surrender means slavery, growled the Draken representative. His red scales reflected the light from the holographic display. The Vorthons don't take prisoners, they take workers. Your people will spend the rest of their lives in their mining colonies. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what happened. 2 species that fell under Vorthan control. Reptilian Empire had perfected the art of conquest. They would arrive with overwhelming force, demand submission, and then strip the conquered worlds of everything valuable. The native populations became workers in their own mines and factories. We have to do something, said the Alaran trade representative. She was tall and elegant, with skin that changed color based on her mood. Right now it was the deep purple of desperation. We can't let them take another system. Zepha's shoulders sagged. We've tried everything. Our combined fleets are no match for their technology. They have better shields, better weapons, and they fight without honor. They target civilian populations to force surrenders. What about the Corvani battle fleet? Asked Commander Velinara. They're supposed to be the best warriors in the sector. Now, they're pulling back to defend their home world. We can't count on them for help. The Athathuran delegates glow dim too. Almost nothing, so we're alone, maybe. Not, said a new voice from the back of the chamber. Everyone turned to see Lieutenant Hayes, a young communications officer who rarely spoke during council meetings. She was holding a data pad and looked nervous about interrupting the senior officers. What is it, Lieutenant? Zephyr asked. Sir, we received a transmission this morning. It's from an unknown species. They're offering to help us fight the Vorthans. The room erupted in surprised chatter. New species were discovered occasionally, but most were still developing space travel. It was rare for an unknown civilization to make contact with the Council. What do we know about them? Zephyr asked. Hayes consulted her data pad. They call themselves humans. They say they come from a world called Earth in a system they call Soul. The transmission was short, but they claimed to have military experience and want to join the galactic community. Military experience against whom? Asked the Drari representative. If they're new to space travel, who have they been fighting? The transmission doesn't say, sir, but they mentioned something else. They said their world is classified as what they call a Class 12 death world. The chamber fell completely silent. Every delegate stared at Hayes in disbelief. That's impossible, whispered Commander Bellinara. No intelligent species has ever evolved on anything higher than a Class 6 world. Class 12 would be completely uninhabitable. Maybe it's a translation error, suggested the Altarian delegate. Their language systems might be different from ours. Zephyr was studying the data on his personal display. What else did they say? They want to meet with Council leadership to discuss terms for their assistance. They said they can be here in one planetary rotation if we agree to the meeting. One rotation. The Drari representative looked surprised. How far away is their home system? According to their message, about 47 light years. That's impossible, said Commander Bellinara. Our fastest ships take at least 6 rotations to travel that distance. Maybe they have better engines than we thought, they suggested. Zepto was quiet for a long moment, considering their options. The Vorthons would reach the Athathuran colonies in 2 rotations. The Council fleet was scattered and weakened. They had no allies left who could help them. Dammer, the Athathuran delegate said softly, my people are peaceful. We have never harmed another living being. But if these humans can help us, I know, Zaptor replied, but we know nothing about them. What if they're worse than the Vorthons? How could they be worse? Asked the Drari representative. The Vorans enslave entire species. These humans are offering to help us fight them, but why? Zephyr asked. What do they want in return? Hayes checked her data pad. Again, they want recognition as a member species of the Galactic Council. They want the right to trade with other worlds and to be included in scientific exchanges. That's all. Mandervira sounded surprised. Most species want technology transfers or territorial concessions. That's what the message says. Hayes confirmed. The Alaran delegate's skin shifted to a lighter purple, indicating cautious hope. It sounds reasonable. They can help us defeat the Vorthons. Membership in the Council is a small price to pay, but we still don't know anything about them. Zephyr pointed out, what if this Class 12 designation isn't a translation error? What if they really did evolve on a world that dangerous? Then they might be exactly what we need, said the Drari representative. If they survived on a world that hostile, they might be tough enough to fight the Vorthons. Athathuran delegate's glow brightened slightly. My people will be enslaved or killed in 2 rotations. We have nothing left to lose. Zapdar looked around the chamber at the faces of the other delegates. He saw desperation, fear, and just a hint of hope. The Council had been losing the war for 3 years. Every conventional strategy had failed. Maybe it was time to try something unconventional. Lieutenant Hayes, he said finally, send a reply to these humans. Tell them the Council agrees to meet with them. Ask them to send a diplomatic vessel to Station Nexus Prime. Sir Hayes replied, already working on her data pad, and Lieutenant Z added, ask them to provide more information about their military capabilities. We're going to trust them with our survival. We need to know what they can do. As Hayes left the chamber to send the message, the other delegates began talking among themselves. Some were hopeful, others were worried. But all of them knew that this might be their last chance to stop the Vorthons from conquering the entire sector. What none of them realized was that they were about to meet a species that had evolved on a world so dangerous that every other civilization would consider it uninhabitable. A world covered mostly in violent liquid oceans where the atmosphere contained poisonous gases, where deadly radiation from the star required special protection. Massive predators had once ruled, and smaller, smarter ones had learned to survive through cooperation, cunning, relentless determination. The humans were coming, and the galaxy would never be the same. The sensors on Station Nexus Prime started screaming warnings at exactly 80 hours. Lieutenant Hayes rushed to her console, her fingers flying across the display as she tried to understand what was happening. Admiral Z to the command center immediately. She called over the station's communication system. We have incoming ships. Zephyr arrived within minutes, his forearms already reaching for different control panels. Before he even sat down, report. Lieutenant, sir, we're detecting multiple contacts at the edge of the system. They just appeared out of nowhere. Our long-range sensors didn't pick up any approach. How many ships? Hayes frowned at her display. That's the problem, sir. The sensors are giving us conflicting readings. Sometimes it looks like 50 ships, sometimes it looks like 500. Sensor malfunction? I don't think so, sir. Think their ships are designed to confuse our detection systems. Zephyr studied the main display screen. Incoming contacts were moving in a formation he had never seen before. Instead of the orderly lines that most species used, these ships seemed to be arranged in a complex pattern that constantly shifted and changed. Are they responding to our hails? Yes, sir. They're transmitting on standard diplomatic frequencies. They identify themselves as the Human Defense Force, and they're requesting permission to dock. Human Defense Force. Far repeated. Not exploration fleet or diplomatic mission. No, sir. Defense Force. They also transmitted their diplomatic credentials. The lead ship is called the UES Vengeance, commanded by Captain Jake Morrison. The name sent a chill through Zephyr. Most species name their ships after peaceful concepts like harmony, unity, or discovery. These humans had named their flagship after revenge, sir. Hayes continued. There's something else. Our sensors are analyzing their ship construction. Oh, the materials they're using shouldn't be possible to work with. The density reading suggests their hulls are made from compressed metals that would require extreme heat and pressure to forge. How extreme? It's the kind of heat and pressure you'd find in the core of a planet, sir. Zephyr's blue skin palled slightly. Are you telling me they can manipulate materials at planetary core temperatures? It appears so, sir, and there's more. Their ships are covered in what look like defensive spikes and armor plating. They're built for combat, not exploration. The main display showed the approaching fleet in more detail now. Each ship was dark, angular, and intimidating. They moved through space with purpose, like predators hunting prey. Sir Hayes said quietly, they're not like Any species we've encountered before. Grant them permission to dock, Zether. Ordered, but activate all security. Protocols, I want armed guards at every docking port. Yes, sir, but minutes. Later, the human shuttle approached. Docking Bay 7, the alien observers, watching from the control room, were immediately struck by the design, where most shuttles were smooth and elegant. The human craft looked like it was built to survive combat. It had thick armor, plating, weapon hardpoints, and engines that glowed with contained power. It's not just a shuttle, observed Commander Velinara, who had joined them in the control room. It's an assault craft. The shuttle landed with mechanical precision, and the docking bay filled with the sound of pressurizing airlocks. The alien security team positioned themselves around the bay, their weapons ready but not openly threatening. The shuttle's door opened with a hiss of escaping atmosphere. The first human to emerge was Captain Jake Morrison. He was not particularly tall by alien standards, but there was something about the way he moved that made everyone in the docking bay take notice. He walked with the fluid grace of a natural predator, his eyes constantly scanning the area around him. Behind him came his security team. Each human carried themselves with the same confident awareness. They wore armor that looked both functional and intimidating, and their weapons were clearly designed for maximum efficiency rather than ceremonial display. Welcome to Station Nexus Prime, Admiral Zester said as he approached the human delegation. I am Admiral Zier of the Galactic Council. Morrison nodded respectfully. Captain Jake Morrison, United Earth Space Command. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us. Zephyr noticed that Morrison's eyes never stopped moving, even while talking. The human was observing everything around him, noting the positions of guards, the locations of exits, and the layout of the docking bay. Please follow me to the conference room, Zefter said as they walked through the station's corridors. The other alien species they encountered stopped and stared. The humans moved as a unit, maintaining formation without any apparent communication. Their footsteps were synchronized, their spacing precise. Your station is impressive, Morrison commented. Good defensive positions, multiple escape routes, and excellent sightlines. Well designed. Zether was surprised by the observation. Most diplomats commented on the artistic features or technological achievements of the station. Morrison had immediately analyzed it from a military perspective. You think in terms of defense, Zapter noted. Always, Morrison replied. Kept us alive this long. They entered the conference room where the other council delegates were waiting. The Atherian representative's crystalline form was glowing with nervous energy. Commander Velinara sat with her large black eyes fixed on the humans. Drainery representative watched them with the interest of one predator recognizing another. Please be seated, Zester said, gesturing to the chairs around the conference table. The humans sat down, but Zether noticed they chose positions that gave them clear views of all entrances and exits. Even in a diplomatic meeting, they were prepared for trouble. We understand you're having problems with the Voran Empire, Morrison began without preamble. We've been monitoring your communications and observing their fleet movements. You've been watching us, Commander Velinara asked. Standard reconnaissance, Morrison replied. We don't make contact with any species without understanding the local situation first. How long have you been observing us? Z asked. About 6 months. Morrison said we needed to understand who we were dealing with before making contact. The Atherian delegate's glow flickered. You've been spying on us for 6 months. We've been gathering intelligence. Morrison corrected. It's basic security protocol. We needed to know if you were a threat. Are we? Asked the Draconary representative, his red scales gleaming. Morrison studied him for a moment. No. You're not your prey. The blunt statement shocked the room into silence. Most species would never be so direct in their assessment. Prey is after repeated. You fight like prey animals, Morrison explained. You react to threats instead of eliminating them. You defend territory instead of destroying your enemy's ability to attack. You hope for peaceful solutions when dealing with predators, and they Vorthans are predators, Commander. Velinara asked. Yes, but not very good ones. They rely on size and intimidation instead of skill and strategy. They're bullies, not hunters. What makes you different? Zephyr asked. Morrison smiled, and the aliens found the display of white teeth unsettling. We're what evolved to hunt the bullies. Tell us about your world, the Atherian delegate said. Our records show you classified it as a Class 12 death world. Correct, Morrison replied. Earth is a high-gravity world with unstable weather patterns, extreme temperature variations, and an atmosphere that's toxic to most life forms. 70% of the surface is covered in liquid water that's constantly in motion. The remaining 30% is divided between frozen wastelands, burning deserts, and dense forests filled with predators. How do you survive on such a world, Commander? Velinara asked. We evolved to survive it, Morrison said. We learned to work in groups, to use tools, to think ahead of our enemies. We had to become smarter, faster, and more adaptable than everything that wanted to kill us. What kind of creatures threatened you? The Drari representative asked. Everything, Morrison replied. Massive predators that could crush us with one bite, smaller ones that hunted in packs, microscopic organisms that could kill us with disease, whether that could freeze us, burn us, or drown us. Our own planet tried to kill us every single day, yet you survived. After observed, we didn't just survive, Morrison corrected. We thrived. We learned to hunt the hunters. We became the apex predators on a world full of apex predators. The room was quiet as the aliens processed this information. The idea of a species that had evolved on such a hostile world was almost beyond their comprehension. What do you want from us? Zephyr asked. Partnership, Morrison replied. We want to join the galactic community. We want to trade, share knowledge, and contribute to interstellar civilization. And in return, we'll solve your Vorthon problem. How? Commander Velinara asked. Morrison's smile returned. We'll show them what real predators look like. Delegates exchanged glances. The humans were unlike any species they had ever encountered. They were confident, direct, and clearly dangerous. But they were also offering to help when no one else could. The Vorians have 300 ships, Zephyr said. How many do you have? 50 ships against 300. Delegates glowed, dimmed with concern. More than enough, Morrison replied confidently. We don't need to match. There, War Commander Thakmer stood on the bridge of his flagship, Dominion's Fang, watching the sensor displays with satisfaction. His massive, reptilian form cast a shadow over the control stations as his subordinates worked around him. After 3 years of easy victories, this would be another simple conquest. Navigation officer. Sector, report on our approach to the Kepler system. He commanded, his voice deep rumble that made the bridge crew nervous. War Commander, we are 2 hours from the system's edge. Our scout ships report the presence of the usual council defense fleet, but they have been joined by unknown vessels. Thapmer's yellow eyes narrowed. Unknown vessels? How many? 50 ships, War Commander. They appear to be smaller than our standard cruisers. 50 ships, Thapmer. Laugh was a harsh, grating sound. The council grows desperate if they think such a small force can stop us. The Voran fleet was massive and intimidating. 300 ships arranged in perfect formation, each 1 kilometer long and bristling with weapons. The largest vessels, the dreadnoughts, carried enough firepower to level entire cities. They had never lost a battle. War Commander, the communications officer hissed, we are receiving a transmission from the unknown vessels. Put it through, Thapmer ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing the image of a human face. Captain Jake Morrison looked directly at the Voran commander with calm, steady eyes. Vorthon Fleet, this is Captain Morrison of the Human Defense Force. You are in violation of galactic law and have committed acts of genocide against peaceful species. You have 1 opportunity to surrender and face trial for your crimes. Thapmer stared at the screen in disbelief. Creature speaking to him was small, Softel looking and apparently serious about demanding surrender from a fleet 6 times larger than his own. What species are you? Thapmer demanded. We are human. We come from Earth. This is your final warning. Your final warning. Sakamore's laughter filled the bridge. You pathetic creature, you filled 50 ships against our 300. You are either insane or eager to die. Morrison's expression didn't change. Maybe both, but we're definitely effective. You have 30 seconds to stand down your weapons and prepare for boarding. Thapmer scales rippled with amusement. You think to board Voran vessels? You will crush you like insects. 20 seconds, Morrison said calmly. Thapmer cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. Target all unknown vessels. Prepare to fire on my command. Around him, the bridge crew began the familiar routine of battle preparation. Weapon systems charged, shields powered up, and targeting computers locked onto the small human fleet. Seconds until weapons are ready. War Commander, the weapons officer reported. Excellent, and we will make quick work of these fools and then proceed to claim the Athathuran colonies. The seconds ticked by. The Voran fleet moved into attack formation, their massive ships turning to bring their main guns to bear on the human vessels. Weapons ready. War Commander, fire. Thapmer commanded. The space around the human fleet exploded with energy beams and plasma bolts. The Voran barrage was devastating enough to destroy any normal fleet several times over. The aliens watching from station Nexus Prime held their breath, expecting to see the human ships torn apart, but when the energy dissipated, the human fleet was gone. Where did they go? Thapmer roared. Unknown, War Commander. They vanished from our sensors just before impact. Find them. The answer came 30 seconds later when the human ships reappeared, but not where anyone expected them. Instead of maintaining Their original position they had somehow moved through the Vorin formation and were now attacking from multiple directions at once. Impossible. Breathed the navigation officer. No ship can move that fast. A human vessels moved like nothing the Vorthons had ever seen. They darted between the massive Vorthon ships, too fast for the heavy weapons to track. Their own weapons were different too. Instead of the energy beams most species used, the humans fired solid projectiles that punched through shields and armor like they weren't there. Turn fire. Themer commanded. All ships return fire. Vorin fleet tried to respond, but their weapons were designed for long-range bombardment of slow-moving targets. The human ships moved too fast and too unpredictably. They would appear, strike, and vanish before the Vorthons could respond. Or, Commander, the Claw of Dominion is reporting hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. The communications officer reported. How is that possible? Our shields are at full power. The humans are using kinetic weapons. War Commander, high-velocity projectiles that our shields cannot stop. Mur watched in growing horror as his fleet began to take damage, and the humans weren't just attacking randomly. They were targeting specific systems: life support, navigation, weapons control. They seemed to know exactly where to hit each ship for maximum effect. War Commander, the Serpent's Tooth is reporting that they've lost main power. They're drifting. Send the Iron Talon to assist them. War Commander, the Iron Talon is under attack. They're requesting immediate support. The battle was becoming chaos. The Vorin ships were too large and slow to effectively engage the human vessels, which moved through their formation like predators hunting prey. But it was worse than that. Humans were using the Vorin ships against each other. Or Commander, the Bone Crusher is reporting they've lost control of their main guns. They're firing on our own ships. The humans have somehow taken control of their weapon systems. They're using our own ships to attack the fleet. Murs blood ran cold. The humans weren't just better fighters. They were using tactics no honorable species would consider. They were turning the Vorthon fleet own weapons against them. War Commander, we've lost contact with the Skull Render, the Death's Head, and the Terror's Edge. Lost contact. Are they destroyed? Unknown. War Commander, they've simply stopped responding to communications. The reality of the situation began to sink in. The humans weren't just winning, they were dominating the battle completely. 100 Vorthon ships were being torn apart by 50 human vessels. War Commander, the humans are transmitting again. Put it through. Captain Morrison's face appeared on the screen again. Behind him, Thuckmer could see the calm efficiency of the human bridge crew. They looked like they were conducting routine operations, not fighting for their lives. Ivoron fleet, this is your final opportunity to surrender. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Never. Mur snarled. We are Vorthon. We do not surrender. Then you'll be destroyed. Morrison replied simply. All ships execute Protocol 7. The transmission ended, and Thakmer turned to his tactical officer. What's Protocol 7? Unknown. War Commander, they found out moments later when the human ships began a coordinated attack unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of continuing their hit-and-run tactics, the human vessels formed into precise formations and began systematically destroying the Envoran Fleet, but they weren't just destroying ships, they were harvesting them. The humans used the debris from destroyed vessels as weapons, accelerating chunks of metal to incredible speeds and firing them at other ships. They turned the Vorthan fleet en masse against them. War Commander, they're using our destroyed ships as ammunition. Impossible. No species would think to do such a thing. They're doing it. War Commander, they're literally throwing our own ships at us. The battle became a nightmare for the Vorthans. The humans used every piece of debris, every bit of wreckage, every destroyed component as a weapon. They were recycling the battlefield itself into instruments of destruction. War Commander, we've lost over half the fleet. We need to retreat. Retreat. Thukmar's pride warred with his survival instincts. We are Vorthon. We do not retreat. War Commander, if we stay, we'll all be destroyed. These humans fight like demons. No, Thakmar said quietly. They fight like nothing we've ever encountered. They're not demons, they're something worse. The final phase of the battle lasted only 20 minutes. The human ships moved through the remaining Vorth and vessels like a pack of hunters, finishing off wounded prey. They targeted life support systems, creating panic among the crews. They disabled engines, leaving ships drifting helplessly. They took control of communication systems, spreading fear and confusion. War Commander, the Venom strike is requesting permission to surrender. Granted, Thakmar said quietly. His flagship was one of the few vessels still capable of fighting, and even it was badly damaged. Or Commander, the humans are hailing us. Put it through. Morrison's face appeared on the screen. Once more. War Commander Thakmar, your fleet is defeated. Surrender now and your crews will be treated according to galactic law. Akmar looked around his bridge. Half his crew was dead or wounded. Amr was crippled. His mighty fleet was reduced to scattered debris and a few badly damaged vessels. How? Asked quietly. How did you destroy us so easily? You fought like you were trying to claim territory. Morrison replied. We fought like we were trying to eliminate a threat. There's a difference. What are you and what happens when evolution takes place on a world that doesn't forgive mistakes? Morrison said. We're what you get when every day is a fight for survival. Thmar's shoulders sagged. In defeat, I surrender. The observation deck of Station Nexus Prime was completely silent. Admiral Zether stood at the massive window, watching human salvage teams work through the wreckage of what had once been the most feared fleet in the galaxy. His four blue arms hung limply at his sides as he tried to process what he had just witnessed. The battle had lasted 3 hours. 3 hours to destroy an empire that had terrorized the galaxy for 3 years. The human ships moved through the debris field like they owned it, collecting useful materials and securing the few surviving Vorian vessels. Admiral came a voice behind him. Zephyr turned to see Captain Morrison approaching, still wearing his combat armor. The human looked completely calm, as if he had just finished routine training exercises rather than the most decisive battle. Galactic history, Captain Morrison, Zester said, struggling to keep his voice steady. That was. I have never seen anything like it. You've never seen a war, Morrison replied simply. You've seen territorial disputes. There's a big difference. I do not understand the distinction. Morrison joined him at the observation window. Below them, human crews worked with Mechanical efficiency, stripping the disabled Voron ships of anything useful. Their movements were coordinated, purposeful, and slightly frightening in their effectiveness. Every species we've met so far seems to fight for control of resources or territory, Morrison explained. You try to capture enemy positions, claim their worlds, maybe demand tribute. Your goal is to gain something. That is how civilized beings conduct warfare. Zector said. Maybe, Morrison replied. But that's not how you survive on a world that's trying to kill you every day. What do you mean? Morrison was quiet for a moment, watching the salvage operations below. Admiral, what do you know about Earth's history? Very little. Your people mentioned it was a Class 12 death world, but we assumed that was a translation error. It wasn't an error. Earth really is that dangerous, so let me tell you what it was like for us. Morrison gestured toward the debris field. Imagine a world where the very air you breathe is poisonous to most life forms, where the surface is covered with violent liquid that can drown you, freeze you, or crush you with its weight, where the weather can kill you in dozens of different ways. How did your people survive such conditions? By becoming more dangerous than everything else, Morrison said. But that took millions of years. Before we became the dominant species, we had to survive things that would give your worst nightmares. Zeph's blue skin palled. What kind of things? Predators that could bite us in half, creatures with claws that could tear through metal, animals that hunted packs and were smarter than most of the species in this galaxy, weather that could freeze us solid or cook us alive, diseases that could kill entire populations. And you survived all of this. We didn't just survive it, we learned to hunt it. Morrison's voice carried a quiet pride. We learned that sometimes the only way to protect your family is to make sure the thing hunting you can never hunt again. The implications of this statement slowly sank in. You learned to eliminate threats completely. Exactly. We learned that there's no point in defeating an enemy if they can come back stronger next time something threatens your survival. You don't just beat it. Make sure it can never threaten anyone again. Fleet, the Vorians will never be able to wage war again. That was the point, Morrison confirmed. We didn't just defeat their fleet, we've sent teams to their home worlds, not to conquer them, but to dismantle their military infrastructure, their shipyards, their weapons factories, their training facilities. All of it. You're destroying their entire ability to make war, removing their ability to threaten peaceful species. The Voron people can live however they want on their own worlds, but they'll never again have the power to enslave other civilizations. Commander Velinar approached them, her large black eyes wide with a mixture of awe and concern. Captain Morrison, our analysts have been studying your battle tactics. We don't understand how you moved your ship so quickly. Morrison smiled slightly. Simple physics. We built our ships lighter and our engines more powerful. When you don't need to carry massive weapons for long-range bombardment, you can focus on speed and maneuverability. But your weapons were much smaller than ours, Felinara said. How did they penetrate Voron shields so easily? Kinetic energy, Morrison explained. We accelerate small projectiles to very high speeds. Energy shields are designed to deflect energy beams, not solid objects moving at significant fractions of light speed. Why didn't we think of that? Zephyr asked. Because you don't think like predators, Morrison said. You think like civilized beings who follow rules of engagement. We think like survivors who use whatever works. Athathuran delegate materialized beside them, her crystalline form glowing with curiosity. Captain Morrison, there is something I must ask. During the battle, your ships used the debris from destroyed vessels as weapons. This seems ... brutal. It's efficient, Morrison replied. Why waste resources? The Vorans brought all that metal into the battle zone. We just recycled it, but to use their own destroyed ships against them. War isn't pretty, Morrison said. It's not supposed to be honorable or fair, supposed to end threats as quickly and completely as possible. Is that how humans always fight, Commander? Velinar asked. It's how we survive long enough to develop space travel, Morrison answered. Every predator on Earth learned the same lesson we did. If you're not willing to do whatever it takes to win, you become food for something that is representative. Join the group. His red scales reflecting the light from the debris field below. Captain Morrison, my people consider ourselves warriors. We have fought many battles and won many victories, but what you did today ... we have never seen such complete dominance. You've never fought for survival, Morrison said. You fought for honor, territory, resources. Those are games with rules. Survival has no rules. What do you mean? Morrison turned to face the assembled aliens. When a pack of wolves threatens your village, you don't challenge them to single combat. You don't try to negotiate a treaty. You don't attempt to capture their territory. You kill the wolves, and you make sure no other pack wants to take their place. The Vorthun were the wolves, Zephyr said quietly. The Vorthons were bullies, Morrison corrected. They picked on species that couldn't fight back effectively. They relied on intimidation in superior numbers. They never faced real predators before, and humans are real predators. Humans are what happened when real predators learned to cooperate, Morrison said. We're pack hunters with technology. The observation deck fell silent as the aliens processed this information. They were beginning to understand that they hadn't just witnessed a military victory. They had seen the introduction of an entirely new form of warfare to the galaxy. Captain Morrison, the Athathuran delegate, said carefully. What happens now? Will humans become the new conquerors? Morrison looked genuinely surprised by the question. Why would we want to conquer you? You're not threats, but you have the power to destroy any of our fleets. Having the power to do something and wanting to do it are different things, Morrison explained. We're not interested in ruling other species. We're interested in making sure no one can threaten peaceful civilizations. What about species that refuse to accept human authority, Commander? Valinara asked. We don't want authority over anyone, Morrison said, but we won't tolerate aggression against council members. Any species that wants to live peacefully is welcome to do so. Any species that wants to conquer others will be stopped. Hey, stopped how? Zephyr asked. Morrison's smile was cold and predatory. The same way we stopped the Vorthons. Completely. The Drari representative scales rippled with something that might have been respect. You offer protection. In exchange for peace, we offer stability, Morrison corrected. For the first time in galactic history, aggressive species will face Consequences too severe to risk. War becomes unprofitable when the price of losing is the permanent loss of your ability to wage war. If a species attacks one of your own worlds, the Atherian delegate asked, Morrison's expression grew very serious. Then they'll learn why Earth produced the kind of species that could destroy the Voran Empire in 3 hours. The aliens exchanged glances. We were beginning to realize that humanity's presence in the galaxy would change everything. It's not through conquest or domination, but through the simple fact that peace would now be enforced by species that had learned survival on a world that showed no mercy, Captain Morrison Zapter said. Finally, I believe we are beginning to understand what makes your species unique. We're not unique, Morrison replied. We're just the product of our environment. Earth taught us that the only way to ensure peace is to make war too expensive to consider. Below them, the human salvage teams continued their work, turning the debris of an empire into useful materials. The galaxy was already becoming a safer place. The aliens were starting to understand that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their tactics, it was their willingness to do whatever was necessary to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. 6 months had passed since the destruction of the Voran Empire. The Galactic Council chambers had never been so quiet during a session. Representatives from 63 worlds sat in their designated areas listening to reports that would have seemed impossible just a year ago. Dr. Lisa Parker stood at the central podium, representing humanity's diplomatic corps. Unlike the intimidating military presence of their first contact, she appeared calm, professional, and surprisingly approachable. But the aliens had learned that human diplomacy could be just as effective as their warfare. The Galactic Defense Initiative has been successfully implemented in 18 sectors, she reported. Consulting her data pad, piracy incidents have decreased by 96%. Attempted territorial expansions by aggressive species have ceased entirely. For the first time in recorded galactic history, we are experiencing true peace. Admiral Zier, now serving as the Council's Chief Security Coordinator, rose from his seat. Dr. Parker, can you explain the specific changes that have created this remarkable transformation? Certainly, Admiral Dr. Parker replied. The key factor has been the establishment of clear consequences for aggressive actions. Previously, hostile species could attack weaker civilizations with minimal risk. Now, they understand that any act of unprovoked aggression will result in the complete dismantling of their military capabilities. Commander Villanara raised her webbed hand. Dr. Parker, there have been concerns raised by some species that humanity is creating a military dictatorship. I understand those concerns, Commander, Dr. Parker said. Let me be very clear about humanity's position. We have no interest in ruling anyone. We're not establishing human colonies on conquered worlds because we don't conquer worlds, we eliminate threats, not governments. What exactly does that mean? Asked the Altarian trade representative. Means we target military infrastructure, not civilian populations, Dr. Parker explained. When the Krellin raiders attempted to attack the Miffin trade routes last month, we didn't invade their home world. We disabled their fleet, destroyed their shipyards, and left their civilian government completely intact, and the Krellin. Response, Commander Velinara asked. They've requested admission to the Galactic Council and have offered to serve as a patrol fleet for the outer rim sectors. Apparently they've discovered that cooperation is more profitable than piracy. The Athathuran delegate's crystalline form glowed with satisfaction. People have begun traveling freely for the first time in generations. Our artists are visiting other worlds. Our scholars are sharing knowledge. Our children are growing up without fear of invasion. That's exactly what we hope to achieve, Dr. Parker said, but I want to address something important. Humanity is not the galaxy's police force. We don't want that responsibility permanently. What do you mean? Executor asked. Dr. Parker activated a holographic display showing star charts marked with different colored zones. We're implementing a training program. Any species that wants to learn human defensive strategies and tactics is welcome to participate. Our goal is to create a galaxy where every civilization can defend itself effectively. You're teaching other species to fight like humans? The Drari representative asked, his red scales showing interest. We're teaching them to think like humans, Dr. Parker corrected. The technology can be adapted to different species capabilities, but the mindset of survival-based warfare is what makes the real difference. Have any species completed this training, Commander Velinara asked. The Corvani finished their first class last week, Dr. Parker reported. They've restructured their entire defense strategy. Instead of trying to match enemy numbers, they now focus on speed, efficiency, and complete elimination of threats. And the results: the Harvan Syndicate attempted to raid a Corvini shipping lane yesterday. The Corvini response fleet destroyed the entire raiding force in 47 minutes. No Corvani casualties. The assembled delegates murmured among themselves. The idea that species could learn to fight with human effectiveness was both encouraging and slightly terrifying. Dr. Parker, the myth and trade delegate, said there are those who worry that spreading human military knowledge will make the galaxy more violent. I understand that concern, Dr. Parker replied, but consider this question. Before humans arrived, how many species lived in fear of invasion? How many civilizations had been enslaved or destroyed by aggressive empires? Most of us admitted, the Athathuran delegate quietly, and now we feel safe for the first time in our history. Commander Velinara said, that's because we've changed the fundamental equation of galactic warfare. Dr. Parker explained. Previously, aggression was profitable. Weak civilizations could be conquered with minimal cost and maximum benefit. Now, any act of unprovoked aggression results in consequences so severe that it's economically impossible to justify. What about species that refuse to join the council system? Asked the Altarian representative. Terry is there free to remain independent. Dr. Parker said, we don't force membership on anyone, but we also don't tolerate attacks on member species. The choice is simple: join the peaceful galactic community or remain isolated but non-aggressive. Has any species chosen isolation? Z asked. 3. So far, the Nixari Empire, the Bloodclaw clans in the Hive Collective all have withdrawn to their home systems and ceased all external military operations. And if they change their minds and decide to become Aggressive again, Dr. Parker's smile was gentle but somehow unsettling then. They'll receive the same education the Vorthons did. Captain Jake Morrison entered the chamber still wearing his military uniform. Even in the diplomatic setting, his presence reminded everyone of humanity's military capabilities. Dr. Parker, I have an update on the Voron situation, he said. Please proceed, Captain. The last Voron military installation was dismantled this morning. Their warship construction capabilities have been completely removed. However, we've established civilian shipyards to help them rebuild their commercial fleet. Commercial fleet? Commander Villanara asked. The Vorthons have requested permission to join the Galactic Trade Network, Morrison explained. It seems they've discovered that commerce is more profitable than conquest when you don't have to worry about defense spending. What about their former slaves? The Athathuran delegate asked. All enslaved populations have been liberated and returned to their home worlds, Morrison reported. The Vorthons have agreed to pay reparations in the form of raw materials and labor for reconstruction projects. They agreed to this voluntarily. Morrison's expression was neutral. After we explained the alternatives, yes, Dr. Parker stepped forward. This brings me to an important point. Humanity has established what we call the Warriors Code for Galactic Application. What is this code? Zur asked. It's based on an ancient principle from our world, Dr. Parker explained. Strength exists to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The strongest predator isn't the one that destroys everything it sees, it's the one that creates an environment where it can thrive safely alongside others. How does this apply to galactic politics? The Drasher representative asked. Simple, Morrison said. Any species with significant military capability has a responsibility to protect weaker civilizations from aggression, not to rule them but to ensure they can develop peacefully, and species that refuse this responsibility will find their military capabilities reduced until they accept it, Dr. Parker said calmly. The chamber was quiet as the implications sank in. Humanity had essentially created a system where military power could only be maintained by those willing to use it for protection rather than conquest. Dr. Parker said. A new voice, the representative from the recently contacted Zeltran Confederacy, stood up. My people have a question. What happens when humanity encounters a species more powerful than yourselves? Dr. Parker and Morrison exchanged glances. It was Morrison who answered. We'll probably learn a lot from them, he said. Humans aren't the strongest species that could possibly exist, or just the strongest species that happen to evolve in this part of the galaxy. But what if they're aggressive? The Zeltran pressed. Then we'll handle them the same way we've handled every other threat in our history, Morrison replied. We'll adapt, evolve, and find a way to survive. That's what we do. And if you can't, Morrison's smile was predatory. And we'll make sure they understand that destroying humanity means destroying the only thing keeping this galaxy peaceful. They'll have to deal with every aggressive species we've been suppressing, plus the vengeful survivors of Earth who will stop at nothing to get their revenge. The chamber fell silent. The aliens realized that humanity had created more than just a defense system. They had created a form of mutually assured stability where everyone benefited from Keeping the peace. Are there any other questions? Dr. Parker asked. Commander Villanara raised her hand. Dr. Parker, there's something many of us have wondered about. Your people evolved on a world that was constantly trying to kill you. How did you become protectors instead of conquerors? Dr. Parker was quiet for a moment before answering. Because we learned that the best way to keep your family safe is to make sure everyone's family is safe.